Hey folks, Coach Patrick here, Endurance Nation, back with another weekly update. Every week we sit down and talk with you about something to do with endurance training and racing. The idea being we want to empower you to be the best possible athlete that you can be. Now, as we think about what it means to be successful across the course of a season, one of the things that really comes to mind here when we hit springtime is just the duration of a year. People will sit down and often plan out their goals for what a year will look like. But then when they get to March and they realize just how much longer they have to go, the scope of the year, the size of the year, the depth of the commitment that you've made really starts to resonate. People start to say, like, "Oh, hey, I know I'm really excited to be ready for my race, but it's July. I'm still in March, right? Or it's August and I'm still in March. What does that mean?" But what it really means is that we have to take a good, hard, long look at what sort of the season looks like and how we structure our year. And something that's really come to light over the last 15 plus years of working with athletes inside Endurance Station is that every year needs to have some component of fun. So today's theme is about strategizing that end of season fun, giving yourself kind of a link towards the end of the year where you can say, what does it mean to be successful for me across the year? And how do I create that space for that to happen without compromising my early season or in season goals, right? So when we think about building a year, everyone starts off by building in with a race. Like, what is my race going to be? When we work backwards from that, we say, okay, I've got to do all this training, get ready for this race. What are the things that I can do around that training or on top of or alongside that training that's going to allow me to be successful long term? And that's part of what I want to cover today. So when I think about putting fun at the end of the year, it is delayed gratification. You're an endurance athlete, so you're kind of used to that. We don't want to have intermediary events that are sort of off base or off topic, really interfering with your progression overall. So we do want to sort of plan the fun stuff and the epic stuff at the end of the year and then use it as a carrot, right? In addition to the race that you're training for, we have this fun event that's, similarly aligned, something we're working towards and building towards that becomes fun and builds that anticipation across the course of the season. Okay. Think about it this way: all work, no play. That's a long and rough road to walk. Okay. So an example of something that people inside Endurance Nation have done over the past couple of years that has worked really, really well is the rim to rim to rim canyon run. Done in the Grand Canyon. It's moving from the different rims. I don't even know if it's north to south or east to west. Guilty. Haven't done it myself. But people have gone ahead and basically taken this epic event and modified it. Either it's one way, some people do it one way, some people do it both ways. Some people will walk, run, some people are running. Some people are doing it competitively, others are just out there to get the experience done. But the net is that that's become a great end of season activity for people who've been struggling all year with their fitness and looking for something fun to do. Since it's not a race, people are just having more fun. They're meeting up, they're doing things socially. It's also sort of a low pressure, engaged way for other people to get into the space of being active. So even if you may be a triathlete and someone else does cycling events, you can get together and do something like rim to rim because it's not just a single discipline specific or something that excludes people who don't necessarily walk in that same path as you. It's all about your sense of adventure, your means of being able to get there. And it has enough challenge with it that it gives you the opportunity to kind of create a plan and execute against it and still have fun, right? So low pressure, but high reward is exactly what we're looking for in terms of development here, right? Okay, so how do we do this? Well, one easy way to do it is just to find your friends and come up with some crazy goal. If you sat down and just said, hey, what is it you want to do? What's on your bucket list? What's on my bucket list? Let's put those all down. And if we find that overlap, that's the thing. I was like, let's make that bucket list thing happen. But if you're going to be more intentional about it, or you needed to be, or people are looking for you to lead this conversation, then definitely take a look at your season and identify what goals overlap with that, right? So if you've been cycling or running, then, having your end of season goal being like, swimming the English Channel, really not in alignment, right? If you've been like living in warm weather and your goal is to like do some sort of crazy Antarctic marathon or something else, not in alignment. Impossible? Certainly not. But easy to fit into your context of your year, definitely not as well. And when you have end of season fun goals that don't complement the build you're doing during your year, it's certainly possible to do them, but we start to sense that divergence and there's a cost associated with it in terms of your mental energy and your training focus. So if you have to diverge away from your regular season training to accomplish training for this ancillary goal, things become a little more challenging. So if you have the means to do that, the flexibility, the time, the resources, go for it. But otherwise, keep it simple. And let's look to build off of the work that you'll be doing this year in a complementary way to sort of use it as a springboard for that fun and social and large scale event at the end of your year. Okay. So how do we plan to pivot to do it, right? So I've got 4 steps that I'm going to cover with you here to kind of get you dialed in. So step number 1 is nail those logistics, right? So let's say you decide that you want to do this event in August and it's going to be, or sorry, not even August, let's say like October, November, and you're going to be out in Arizona, it's going to be warm. We'll just call it the rim to rim. Like get the logistics done first. So you have this goal, you're targeting towards it, but what are the logistics? You've got to get there. You need a place to stay. You need a rental car. All those pieces. Like get that dialed in. Figure that out. Make sure that works. Because more often than not, what happens is the big goal lives out there. It's super fun. But we bring it down to the local level and say, how do I implement this in my life? How do I get there? What's the cost going to be? Does it fit the schedule of work, of family, etc.? We run into friction right away. So rather than working big picture all the way back to where you are, let's bring it right down and make it personal and get those logistics dialed right away. It'll show you the true cost of the event, both time and dollars, and then you can decide what's the best way to proceed. Okay. The next piece is then how do we adjust your training to reflect that bigger goal, right? So if you're doing that deferred race that's later in the year, like October, or a deferred event, we don't have a lot to change now in March. But in June, July, August, we're going to have to start thinking about how we're going to add trail running, off-season running, or off-trail running, sorry, and then also just like downhill running, heat compensation, carrying your hydration, some of those elements that may not be reflected in your race choice for the season, but we can buckle down and get them done in that Sunday long run or that Thursday long run, depending on things work for you, right? In fact, we may have you do some long hikes to replace some of those long runs as complementary training that has the dual purpose of preparing you for your near event, but then also setting you up for success in that fun event as well. The third part is to assess and adjust on a monthly timeline. So see where you're at. So you've got a goal that you're training for your race, but we have this ancillary goal later in the year. So just make sure you're on track, right? Like how are you doing? Obviously, your current upfront race takes precedent. We want to make sure we're on track for that, but also check in and say, am I still aligned with that bigger picture goal? Am I still excited about it? Is it still worth it? Does everything still work for it? What does that look like? We always want to kind of keep an eye on that, not as a priority, but just to make sure that things are in alignment. We don't want to exit your race season and say, oh my God, that's right, I signed up for this thing in 6 weeks. I'm not going to be ready. We don't want it to be like a punishment or a negative experience. We want to build on it. And it's as simple as a monthly check-in. Just make sure things are rolling well. As long as you're staying healthy with your baseline training and you're staying consistent, odds are you'll be on track for that big picture goal. And the fourth and final piece here is be ready to make that final push. This is just as much mental as it is physical. Once you get through that early race, the thing that you've been sort of targeting and prioritizing, and we have that fun event left at the end of the year, there's always this disconnect, the chasm between like the work you had to do and the work you want to do. And changing gears and getting into that final season push can be tough. Having social accountability or other people in that fun event at the end of the year can certainly help. But even just internally for you, being able to make that push and say, oh, I need to rest and recover from my race. I know I also need to get back to the grind to be prepared for this event. I can't just let all my fitness go away. What does that look like for you? Talk to your coach, talk to your training partners, talk to your friends, figure out what it is going to take for you to stay on track, what sort of early incentives you have to put in place to create alignment, what other rewards or things you need to line up there, or punishments, however you work, carrot or stick, as an opportunity to kind of keep you on track. So the last thing we want to do is have a successful year, but then really neglect that end of year, have the interest be high, but the ability and means be low simply because we've had a disconnect with that mental push. Hopefully you pick something that's epic enough and connected enough to your training group or with others that the idea of getting to be able to do it significantly pushes you in the right direction of being successful. All right. That's it. Coach Patrick signing off for another weekly check-in. This week was all about strategizing your end of season fun. I'll be back next week, every Wednesday, with an idea for what you can do with your training and racing to make yourself a better athlete. If you've got questions about how to manage your time, how to manage your schedule, how to fit things in to be successful over time. We work with age group endurance athletes all across the spectrum. We're happy to help you out as well. Go more to endurancenation.us to learn more and just dial in on what everything we've got going on in our life. All right. Take care. Have a great week, everyone. I'll see you next week.